Hi, everyone. I hope you're excited as I am. This is truly a historic moment. So I'll introduce myself really quickly because I think it's really important for the people who may be seeing my face for the first time. So I'm Maryam Hardy. I am the president of the Oxford University Africa Society, and I'm Ghanaian. And so I am absolutely honored to stand before you today to not just represent Africa, but also to represent my very, very beautiful, wonderful country, Ghana. We were anticipating that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama give us the opening for AU Day. However, due to a national emergency, he's unable to attend in person. However, he really wanted to be here, and so he's been really gracious and really kind enough to send us a video. And in his presence, and just so you know, he already had his speech prepared. Everything was prepared and ready for the conference up until the emergency. And so in his presence, we have our Honorable Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, who is a 4-term Ghanaian legislator representing the good people of North Tungu in the Volta region. He has had an illustrious public service career that has spanned about 2 decades. I think every Ghanaian here probably knows who Honorable is. And he's currently serving as the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Ghana. And so, obviously, who is the best person to represent the country and the president other than Honorable Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa? So on this note, I'll hand this back to the MCs who would go ahead to introduce Elisabeth, and we'll take it from there. Thank you so much.
Hello. Yeah.
Chapman 2. Right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Nina. Thank you for your address, and thank you for the various remarks by our co-conveners. As Nina has mentioned, we are going to transition to the next part of the program. We will receive a virtual address by His Excellency, the President of Ghana. Thereafter, we'll transition to a fireside chat that's going to be facilitated by Elisabeth.
Yes, and Elisabeth is a WHT scholar here at Oxford and studying here at the Blavatsky School of Government. She is doing a Master of Public Policy, and yeah, she's a dear friend, so Elisabeth will be here for a fireside chat after. So yeah, and our keynote from the President. Thank you.
My greetings to everyone attending the 2025 Oxford Africa Conference at the prestigious University of Oxford. I was looking forward to joining you all and engaging in the vital discussions around this year's theme, Changing Narratives, Vision, Action, and Transformation of Africa. Unfortunately, pressing matters here in Ghana require my immediate attention, making it impossible for me to travel. While I cannot be with you in person, I urge you to embrace the spirit of this conference. Africa's story is being written by its people, and I'm confident that the vibrant discussions and innovative ideas that emerge from your gathering will contribute significantly to shaping a brighter, more prosperous future for our continent. The choice of theme for this year's conference is not only timely, it is critically important and speaks to the very heart of Africa's journey in the 21st century. I've held the view that the dominant narratives about Africa have been shaped too much by external lenses, often focusing on poverty, conflict, disease, and dependency. My Minister for Environment, Science, and Technology will deliver my presentation, which details practical and visionary solutions and suggestions to the conference. And so I send you all my best wishes for a productive and impactful conference. Let us continue to work together to realize the vision of a transformed Africa. I thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for listening to that. And because, of course, the president couldn't be here today, please allow me to usher to the stage his foreign minister who's here to speak on his behalf. Please, ladies and gentlemen, a hand of applause, please.
Thank you very, very much. And I'm certainly not the Minister for Environment, Science and Technology. As you heard our president say, there's an interesting story about why the Minister for Environment could not be here this morning. You won't believe it that he got to the airport in Kotoka, International Airport. For those of you who haven't visited Ghana yet, it's Kotoka International Airport, only to find out that the visa he had been issued with begins on the 2nd of June. That was the commencement date. For and he had checked in. Will you believe that? He had checked in and was just going through the final formalities. So I was in Brussels attending the EU-AU summit and the OACPS summit. And I was asked to save both the president and the Minister for Environment. You know. So that should tell you how committed Ghana has been to be present with you today. There were so many forces militating against the government of Ghana's presence. But I'm glad that we defied all those forces and made it here. I would like to acknowledge very distinguished personalities I see here. First of all, let me thank the Africa Society led by Nina for putting this together. It's been an incredible gathering. I followed yesterday's event, and the discussions were really thought-provoking, very, very insightful, and well attended. I really want to congratulate you for the successful event. I also see here my own president of my Old Boys Association, and since I do not want to be declared persona non grata, at our next Old Boys meeting, let me respectfully acknowledge the presence of Dr. Ernest Oforisapon, who I'm told discharged his duties very competently without a surprise. He's an Odadia, what do you expect? As ISF head judge yesterday, I also see the Honorable Abna Osei, former Minister of State responsible for finance, and her dear husband, my brother, Kweku. I acknowledge them. I also acknowledge Ambassador Edward Boateng, who was Ghana's former ambassador to China. And let me really express my deepest gratitude to all of you for this opportunity to engage with you. And it's really interesting that we meet on Africa Union Day here in the United Kingdom. It's exactly 125 years ago since the first Pan-African Conference was called here in England. And it is the courage, the audacity for African students largely, led by W.E.B. Du Bois, to convene here, which really, at the time, was the center of the colonial movement, and to have the colonialists in full control, full domination of the continent. Remember, it was just a few years after the Berlin Conference when they had partitioned Africa amongst themselves. And yet, young Africans, largely students, were not afraid to meet at the center, at the heart of colonialism in 1900 to demand the emancipation of Africa, to highlight the injustice, the atrocities that were going on. And it's important for us to reflect on this because this year, the African Union has chosen reparation as a theme for the year. If you look at the international atrocities that have taken place, it is only the atrocity against the African people that has not been fully addressed. Many still live in denial. Many refuse to acknowledge their role, and there has been no reparation. The African people have not received justice. So as we meet on AU Day and reflect on the state of our continent, where it all began in 1900, 125 years ago, when the first Pan-African Conference was called, it is important to join Ghana, which is the lead country. We proposed the theme, and President John Dramani Mahama is the champion for the continent on reparations. We ask that you join us with your scholarly work, with your intellectual depth that Oxford is known for, to help us in demanding reparation and demanding justice. It's not about the financial gain. African governments don't really want that money. We are building our own resilience. But it is about justice. It is about closure. It is about making sure that the international community recognizes that the African people will demand justice and will continue to demand justice. So that's the theme for the African Union this year, and we are going to come back to you to see how we can work together as young people to make sure that this quest for justice is achieved. Very briefly, before I read President Mahama's speech, I would like to state without a doubt how profoundly proud I am to be speaking on behalf of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama at this prestigious university, particularly when we are discussing changing narratives. If there is any African leader who represents changing narratives, it is His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. President Mahama, contrary to that dominant narrative that African politicians cling on to power and refuse to hand over, he is the first president in our history to concede before the Electoral Commission declared the results of the 2016 elections, having served only one term. Even when African leaders have served for decades and their health is failing and they can barely walk at international conferences, they decide to hold on. But not the agile and relatively young President Mahama at the time. He promptly handed over and waited out 8 good years, only for the Ghanaian people to say, come back. We are doing a sankofa. That is changing narratives. It is not true that all African politicians are power drunk and will hold on to power even at the peril of peace and stability. It certainly is not true, and President Mahama and Ghana demonstrate that. I am also proud, particularly at a time that your society is led by a vibrant, intelligent Ghanaian female. I am proud. Yeah, let's give it to her. I am exceedingly proud that President Mahama has given Ghana the first female vice president, Her Excellency Professor Nana Jenotokwaji. And we are almost there. Like Tanzania has done, like Namibia has done, I know very soon Ghana will also have its first female president. And I'm also very proud that changing narratives, President Mahama has appointed the leanest government in the history of the Republic of Ghana. We have come down from a high of about 110 ministers. And the history, if you follow Ghanaian politics, is that many politicians in opposition promise a lean government. Then they come into power and say, oh, you know, we really got a promise wrong. We didn't know the task was that huge. And there is political pressure from the chiefs, from the pastors, the imams, the constituencies. So we can't keep that promise. Forgive us. But not President Mahama. He said he will not exceed 60 ministers, which is the lowest we've ever had. And guess what? He's appointed only 56. He's not even in a hurry to fulfill that promise of 60. And that is why, as I speak to you today as Foreign Minister of Ghana, I do not have a deputy. So you can imagine how tough the assignment has been. I'm also glad that talking about changing narratives, President Mahama demonstrates that. He's leading an economic transformation, and I'm sure that the chair of the Public Accounts Committee, former Minister for Finance, will confirm. A few days ago, Bloomberg named the Ghanaian cedi as the strongest currency in the world. All the rating agencies are giving Ghana an upward rating. We are being favorably looked upon by all of them, Moody's, Standard & Poor's, Fitch, and which is helping us to find our place in the international market again. And finally, I'm also very proud that President Mahama, talking about changing narratives, is perhaps the only African president I know who has established clearly a code of conduct for all his appointees and his entire government. And those codes are very, very strict, and he's leading by example. On the day he launched the code of conduct, 3 cars, very luxurious cars that had been donated or gifted to him, he publicly declared those cars and he donated them to the government pool of vehicles, that he did not want to keep them as a private gift. And he has said that no appointee of his will be allowed to keep any gift that is above 20,000 Ghana cedis. That is about some 1,500 pounds. You have to declare and you have to return it to the Chief of Staff. At the end of the government's tenure, there will be an assessment whether that should be kept at state protocol, or if it is declared a personal gift, then you may have it. So that gifts do not influence politicians in decision-making, in who to award contracts to, and all of that. He's also declared that no politically exposed person will be allowed to purchase state assets, whether they are state lands, state bungalows, state cars, forests, and those of you who have Ghanaian political history would know why I've added forests, you know. So talking about changing narratives, I think that the organizers could not have found a much well-deserved African president who epitomizes that and who is leading by example. And I just want to state for the record that you did your research very well. I don't believe it is just because by some, if you like, fortuitousness, the president is Ghanaian, and so the president of the society is Ghanaian, so a Ghanaian was chosen. But I think that he really epitomizes the changing narratives that we want to see about leadership on the continent. And I want to commend you for your research, which is not surprising. This is Oxford, so you always have your methodologies right. Now the preliminary comments are over. I have to perform my duties of reading President Mahama's address. It is a profound honor and privilege to stand before you today in the hallowed halls of this historic institution, the University of Oxford, a global beacon of learning and intellectual inquiry for over 8 centuries. I am grateful to the Oxford University Africa Society for the gracious invitation to deliver this keynote address at the 2025 Oxford Africa Conference. This conference has become a vital platform, perhaps the vital platform in Europe for robust and forward-looking discussions about Africa's future. I am humbled to follow in the footsteps of esteemed colleagues and leaders, including my compatriot, former President of Ghana, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, Dr. Donald Kaberuka, Raila Odinga, Ellen Sirleaf Johnson, and Amina Mohammed, who have shared invaluable insights on this stage. Your choice of theme for this year's conference, Changing Narratives, Vision, Action, and Transformation of Africa, is not only timely, but critically important. It speaks to the very heart of Africa's journey in the 21st century. For far too long, the dominant narratives about Africa have been shaped by external lenses, often focusing on poverty, conflict, disease, and dependency. These narratives, born out of historical injustices, exacerbated by sensationalized media reporting, and sometimes perpetuated by our own internal challenges, have painted an incomplete, often inaccurate picture. They have obscured the resilience, ingenuity, diversity, and immense potential that lies within our continent. Consider, for instance, the images that often flash across screens in Europe and elsewhere, images of aid dependency, political instability, or humanitarian crisis. While not denying the real challenges that exist in certain parts of the continent, these images have overshadowed stories of innovation, flourishing in Accra, Kigali, Johannesburg, and Nairobi. Democratic transitions occurring across the continent, sustainable energy projects powering communities, and a youthful population driving technological, artistic, and cultural movements that resonate globally. These persistent, often negative narratives do more than misinform. They impact investment decisions, shape policy approaches, and influence how young Africans see themselves and their place in the world. They limit possibilities. Therefore, the first critical step in our transformation journey is to consciously, deliberately, and effectively change these narratives. This isn't about denial or painting a perfect picture. It is about showcasing the whole picture, the challenges and opportunities, the struggles and successes, the past burdens and future potential. Our vision for a changing narrative must be one of African agency. It is about Africans telling their own stories, defining our aspirations, and leading our development. The narrative must be rooted in resilience, innovation, self-reliance, and a confident engagement with the rest of the world as equal partners. That is what underpins my vision of resetting the economy of my country to build the Ghana my people want. Ladies and gentlemen, as a continent, it is time for us to be deliberate with the vision we set for ourselves. That vision must not only be aspirational, but also grounded in the tangible shifts occurring on the continent. I am talking of a vision of an Africa where democratic institutions are strengthened not weakened. An Africa where economic opportunities abound, driven by entrepreneurship and innovation. An Africa where healthcare systems are robust and accessible to all. An Africa that is a leader in climate action and sustainable practices. An Africa whose rich media, culture, and arts enrich global civilization. An Africa that leverages technology and AI for consumption, creation, and progress. This is the vision that must replace the outdated script we have been working with. Ladies and gentlemen, a compelling vision is only valuable when accompanied by concrete action. Changing narratives requires changing realities on the ground. This is where the core work lies, and it directly links to the vital sub-themes of this conference. First, governance and democracy. A credible new narrative for Africa must be built on a foundation of solid governance and deepening democracy. Over the past 3 decades, Ghana has experienced both the progress and the pitfalls of democratic consolidation. We have seen peaceful transfers of power, a vibrant media landscape, and an active civil society. Yet, we also grapple with challenges like corruption, electoral reforms, and ensuring that democracy delivers tangible economic benefits for the people. Ghana's journey since the 1992 Constitution was promulgated can be compared to nations like Botswana, which have maintained consistent democratic practice, or conversely, countries facing democratic setbacks. Post-conflict reconstruction efforts in Sierra Leone and Liberia, or older democracies in Europe, can provide us with valuable lessons. In that sense, therefore, principles of the rule of law and accountability from more established democracies can be adapted to our context. The action required on the continent is continuous institutional strengthening, promoting transparency, protecting the civic space, and ensuring the judiciary and legislature are truly independent. On economic development and entrepreneurship, the narrative of Africa as solely an aid recipient is rapidly being replaced by one of Africa as a frontier for investment and entrepreneurship. Our youthful population is a demographic dividend, not a burden. Look at the growth of the tech space in Accra, in Lagos, in Nairobi, in Johannesburg, in Kigali, and many other capitals on the continent, which are attracting venture capital and building innovative solutions like M-Pesa in Kenya. M-Pesa revolutionized mobile money and is now a model studied globally. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which Ghana is proud to host, represents a potential market of 1.3 billion people, with a combined GDP of $3.4 trillion. This is a transformative action, creating opportunities for intra-Africa trade and industrialization. Compare this potential market integration to the historical development of the European Union. What we need to do is to foster an enabling business environment, invest in infrastructure like ports, roads, energy, areas my previous administration and the current one focus on in Ghana. We must also support small and medium-sized enterprises and move up value chains instead of merely exporting raw materials. In Ghana, we have decided, for instance, to transfer and ensure that our mining resources are managed by Ghanaians. After all, we have lots of Ghanaian firms with the requisite experience and the human resource who are currently employed by the foreign companies in our mines. We are not shutting the door on foreign operations, far from that. But a Ghanaian must have a good stake in the resource God has given us to prevent the rampant repatriation of mining proceeds to the home countries of the mining companies. On healthcare and well-being, a strong nation requires a healthy population. The COVID-19 pandemic starkly exposed global fragilities in healthcare systems and highlighted Africa's resilience and adaptability. Ghana's National Health Insurance Scheme is an ongoing effort to provide accessible healthcare despite implementation challenges, which my administration has started to address admiringly. We are augmenting that, and poignantly, with the implementation of a free primary health care that will ensure that even at the smallest health facility, like the health centers and what we call the CHIPS compounds, the sick can be attended to free of charge. During the COVID-19 outbreak, African nations like Senegal, Ghana, Kenya, South Africa rapidly developed testing kits, and initiatives are underway in Rwanda, Ghana, and elsewhere to establish vaccine manufacturing capabilities. Compare this proactive approach to our traditional dependency on external aid for health crisis. The action required, which we have committed to in Ghana, is sustained investment in health infrastructure, training healthcare professionals, focusing on preventive care, and leveraging technology for telemedicine and data management, drawing lessons from public health systems in Europe or Asia. On climate, environment, and sustainability, Africa is disproportionately vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, despite being the lowest contributor to historical emissions. Yet Africa can also be a leader in sustainable solutions. And that is why Ghana is proud to host the Climate Vulnerable Forum in Accra. Ghana is involved in other initiatives like the Great Green Wall Project in the Sahel and efforts to combat illegal mining, galamsey as we call it in the local parlance, to protect our water bodies and forests. Africa has vast potential in renewable energy, solar energy in the Sahara. Morocco's Nouadhizati plant is a leading example. Geothermal energy in East Africa and hydropower. We must invest in green energy transitions, promote sustainable agriculture, protect biodiversity, and advocate for climate justice and adequate climate finance from historical polluters. On media, culture, and arts, this is perhaps one of the most powerful tools for changing narratives, both within Africa and globally. The global explosion of Afrobeat music, the influence of African fashion designers, the growing African film industry, and contemporary African literature and art are all projecting a dynamic, creative, and diverse image of the continent. African media platforms, although they face their own economic pressures, play a vital role in shaping internal discourse and presenting African perspectives to the world. This effort will support the creative industries, ensure media freedom, and leverage platforms to tell authentic African stories while celebrating our identity and heritage. The experience of my political campaigns in 2020 and 2024 is a clear example of what a well-thought through, structured, and managed traditional and new media outfit that is controlled and with a clear set of objectives can achieve for an individual organization, country, and therefore a continent in today's digital world. On AI, innovation, and technology, digital revolution is transforming Africa at an unprecedented pace. AI and other emerging technologies offer immense potential for leapfrogging traditional development stages. Drones delivering medical supplies, AI-powered agricultural tools, increasing yields for smallholder farmers in Ghana, and fintech innovations providing financial access to the unbanked across the continent are just a few examples. We are witnessing the emergence of AI labs and tech hubs dedicated to developing solutions for African challenges. Compare this rapid adoption and adaptation of mobile and digital technology to the progression of previous industrial revolutions. Across the continent, countries are investing in digital infrastructure, promoting digital literacy and STEM education. We are developing policies to foster innovation while addressing ethical considerations and preventing a wider digital divide. Learning from the tech development paths of countries like South Korea and Estonia, we in Ghana have begun the training of 1 million coders to prepare the young Ghanaian with the required digital and technological skills for the new world. We are also in the process of launching the FinTech Growth Fund, which will have dedicated amount of $50 million for our young, enterprising AI innovators. Ladies and gentlemen, these areas of action are interconnected. Good governance fosters economic growth. Economic growth can finance improved healthcare and education. Education and technology promote innovation. And cultural expression enhances national identity and global standing. The culmination of this vision and actions is transformation. This is not merely incremental change, but a fundamental shift in Africa's trajectory and its place in the world. Transformation, in this sense, means moving from being primarily consumers to producers and innovators, shifting from dependency towards self-reliance and strategic interdependence, ensuring our youth inherit a continent of opportunity, not emigration, building societies that are prosperous, inclusive, equitable, and sustainable, an Africa that is a confident, assertive, and influential player on the global stage, contributing solutions to global challenges. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Africa's transformation is already underway, driven by the energy and aspirations of our people, particularly our young people. It requires sustained effort, smart policies, strategic investments, and accountable and visionary leadership. And it is we, the political leaders, who must provide that visionary leadership. I pledge on my honor not to fail my Ghanaian people and to be a catalyst for change across Africa. We will still face issues of debt sustainability, inequality, climate vulnerability, conflict in certain regions, and the impact of global economic shocks. These are real and must be confronted head-on with honesty and determination. But these challenges should not define us. They are obstacles to overcome, not destinations. Our response to these challenges through our vision and action will ultimately determine the narrative and the pace of transformation. To you, the students and scholars here at Oxford, and others joining us from around the world, you are critical to this process. Your research, critical thinking, innovation, and willingness to engage with Africa beyond the stereotypes will be invaluable. Become partners in shaping this new narrative and driving transformation. Seek to understand the complexity, contribute your skills, and invest your energy, whether through academic pursuits, entrepreneurship, policy engagement, or simply by challenging outdated perceptions within your own communities. To the global leaders, policymakers, and investors present, engage with Africa as a continent of opportunity and partnership, not just a recipient of aid or a source of resources. Invest in our potential, support our institutions, and collaborate on finding solutions to shared global challenges. Recognize Africa's agency and listen to our voices. To my fellow Africans, both on the continent and in the diaspora, the primary responsibility for changing our narrative and transforming our continent rests with us. Let us champion good governance, foster entrepreneurship, invest in our people, protect our environment, and celebrate our rich heritage. Let us be authors of our own story. The theme for this year's Oxford Africa Conference is a call to arms, and the vision should be clear. An Africa that is confident, prosperous, sustainable, and self-determining. The actions we must take require courage, innovation, collaboration, and unwavering commitment across all sectors. Let us leave this conference with not just new ideas, but also a renewed determination to translate our vision into tangible action, thereby changing the narrative and accelerating Africa's transformation. I thank you very much. May God bless us all.
What an incredible, incredible speech. Thank you so, so much. And without taking any more time, we would like to invite Elisabeth back onto the stage with the minister for a quick fireside chat. So, Elisabeth, please do join us.
Delegates, let's put our hands together for them.
Honorable Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, please join me upstage. A bigger round of applause, guys. A bigger round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Honorable Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa,
Thank you.
son of man, Akwaba.
Yeah.
First of all, let me use this opportunity to thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And for taking time off your busy schedules to be here. We are truly grateful.
Thank you.
And also, because you are still in your early days, let me congratulate you on your appointment as the Minister of Foreign Affairs for Ghana.
Thank you.
This is huge.
Thank you.
Guys, he deserves an applause for this.
Thank you.
So because of time, I'm just going to ask you a few questions. So, Honorable, Africa is currently facing crucial and significant challenges on the continent in terms of geopolitics. Multiple countries in the Sahel region today have faced some form of, military insurgencies. Now, your neighbor, Burkina Faso, is currently under the regime of a military leader. And so using Ghana as a benchmark, how do you think that other African nations can actually navigate this complex geopolitical landscape to promote their stability, to protect their democratic values, and still maintain that level of diplomatic relations within the continent?
Well, thank you very much. This is a really tough one, and particularly for a foreign minister in this very, very volatile, unpredictable period. And as fate will have it, I'm also the youngest foreign minister in Ghana's history. So it requires even more tact, more skill, and more nuancing to navigate these really troubled waters. And it's not only on the continent, it's geopolitical. I mean, the rule-based order is no longer holding sway. Multilateralism is under attack. The countries that used to lead us in terms of following what is right, what is rule-based, what is the right course in terms of human rights, in terms of loyalty, in terms of trust. All of those values have been thrown out of the window, and we are in uncharted waters. It's not clear how this ship will sail and how things will finally pan out. In our sub-region, this has been further exacerbated by the return to military interventions. We are seeing coups. We thought that the coup era was past in the 70s and 80s. The 90s, there was a transition to democratic order, but because the democratic dividend did not really produce the results. And you see, that's what must guide us. Even those of us, as the Bible says, let him that standeth take heed, lest he falls. If democracy does not provide the dividend, it does not deal with the real issues, the economic emancipation of the people, it does not deliver opportunities, then that democracy will always be under threat and it will not survive. Mind you, all these coups on the continent, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, Guinea, they were all well received by the people. You saw jubilant youth on the streets. And these military leaders have become icons. You know, sometimes even in democratic countries, these coup leaders are being admired, are being looked up to. So we need to really make sure that democracy produces the results. But to address the specific question about the example that Ghana offers, so we have offered ourselves as a bridge. So you notice that when the AES countries had the coups and broke away from ECOWAS, the initial position of ECOWAS was that of isolation. And at a point, there was even talk of a military intervention by an ECOWAS force to defeat the military juntas. But over time, that became impractical. And the African leaders realized that that would not work, particularly in a country like Niger, where the coup leaders are keeping Bazoum, the democratically elected leader. And remember that in Gabon, they were also keeping Ali Bongo, and they could have used them as human shields. So a military intervention was not really the way forward. Now we have adopted what we are calling pragmatic rapprochement. So President Mahama has offered himself as a bridge, and it's going well. The AES countries are engaging us. We are cooperating in terms of economic cooperation. They have applied to use our ports because they are landlocked countries, and for the sake of the people, because we've discovered that these sanctions really don't affect the leaders. It is the people, the masses who suffer. So sanctions don't really work, don't achieve their purpose. So why don't you continue with economic engagement, the integration of the people? Because ECOWAS used to be, and I think it still is, the most integrated sub-regional bloc on the continent, where there's free movement of people, of goods, of capital. And we want to keep that, so we are recognizing their passports, we are recognizing the free movement. We've not ended the 90-day stay when you decide to visit our country. We've allowed them to use our ports for the economic survival of their people. And then we're also cooperating in terms of defense, because what is happening now is that the terrorists are really gaining grounds and gaining more control. So these insurgents you speak of, if we don't come together, collaborate, and really neutralize them, it's just a matter of time. Ghana will be attacked, and Ghana is the only country that has not been attacked. All our neighbors have been attacked. Recently, Benin, about 84 soldiers were killed at their borders. So we have decided that we will share intelligence, we will collaborate. We are training their top military officials at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. So ours is a pragmatic approach, because they are our family, really. The same language, same ethnic group. And remember that these borders were so artificially done. There are families who have their farms in Burkina Faso, and then the living room is in Ghana. You know, that is the reality. And so you can't really separate us by these artificial borders. So that's the pragmatic approach as we continue to engage them to return to the democratic order. At least Mali now has a roadmap, which we are hoping will be respected. Gabon has respected their roadmap. A couple of weeks ago, we were at the investiture of the new president, and they are back on a democratic path, which is good. We are still leaning on Burkina Faso and Niger to come up with a roadmap to democracy. But the bigger lesson is that democracy will fail if it does not produce the results. And it will lead to military interventions. The military leaders will be hailed and celebrated. And the so-called consummate Democrats will be on the sidelines watching. So we must all be guided to make sure that the democratic dividends, job creation, industrialization, good health care, creating opportunities for our people so our people are not forced to migrate out of the continent. That must be our raison d'etre in terms of political leadership, what we prioritize. And I think that once we do that, we should see a decline in these coups, and then eventually the entire continent will be democratized. So that's how we see it.
Yeah. Oh, no, but that was really spot on. I have this question which is so pressing and I'm so passionate about. Africa's economic independence. Yeah. We've currently seen a trend where superpowers have begun cutting back on us. So there is no more US aid. Prime Minister Kestama is cutting aid to modernize UK military. Honorable, briefly, what implications do you think these shifts present for Africa's developmental strategies? Do you view it as an opportunity for our economic independence, or maybe it's just a liability?
To be honest with you, my personal view is that these aid cuts should continue. We don't need their aid. We want to trade. And that's why in Ghana, when President Trump, by his executive order, withdrew the USAID support, the gap was $156 million. We didn't call the US ambassador to negotiate. We didn't go to Washington to kneel down. We didn't call for any second look at the order. We immediately found the money. And in our budget we presented in March, we found the $156 million, which shows that all along, that $156 million, we think about it, was going into such vital areas which really you shouldn't be mortgaging to others, like childhood vaccines, malaria kits, treated mosquito nets, antiretroviral drugs. These are such essential items needed by your people to survive. It makes a difference between life and death. Why are you putting that in the hands of somebody in Washington, D.C., in the name of aid? So, to be honest with you, I think that the more they cut back on all this aid and international assistance, the better for the continent, for us to look within, to be more resilient, and to find our own solutions. Those who have followed my politics and have followed what I did as a ranking member when we were in opposition, I have always argued that there's so much money on the continent that can be used on priority matters. Yeah. We waste money a lot, waste resources on the continent, on all kinds of frivolous expenditures. And sometimes it's outright thievery, naked corruption. And we have to call it what it is. If we stop that, we can have the resources to develop our continent. And to be honest with you, if you look at current geopolitics, it is the West that needs us, not the other way around. They need us. Tell me, where is all the gold? Africa. Where is all the cocoa?
Ghana.
Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire have 80% of the world's cocoa. Where is all the uranium? Where is all the bauxite? Oil and gas. I mean, now, virtually on a daily basis, we even lose count of African countries discovering oil deposits, gas deposits. And we are even discovering more and more natural resources. Ghana has just discovered lithium, for example, and which, as we talk about the AI transition, energy transition, lithium, batteries are going to be such game changers. We have it. They need it. And that is why, despite the pretense that they are moving out of Africa, Africa is not a priority. Read the security reports on the Sahel. Read the security reports on DRC. Find out which countries are there. All of them, they pretend they are living in Africa. It's a myth. They are there. We are now back to another round of scramble for Africa. There is a second round of scramble for African resources. And anytime we meet in international corridors, depending on who you are meeting, you say, oh, why are you people allowing Russia? The Russians will say, oh, why are you allowing the Chinese? Why are you allowing the Indians? What are you up to with the French? What are you up to with the Americans? What are you up to with the Italians? So it should tell you that, really, the discussion should not be about why is aid being withdrawn and how will Africa survive. The aid actually should have been withdrawn long ago. We don't need it. It's dead aid. We need to take control of our resources. And that's why in the president's speech, the president talked about taking control of our natural resources. So we've served notice. All the mining leases, when they expire, there will be no automatic renewal. That used to be what happens. Automatic renewal, another 30 years, and we are getting just about 10% or less, and everything. And go to the mining communities in our countries. They are the most deprived. No amenities, no corporate social responsibility. Poverty is on the rise, unemployment. So we seek to take control of our natural resources. We seek to add value, build refineries, look at the entire value chain, and determine the prices. We don't want gold prices to be determined in London. We don't want cocoa prices to be determined, in Paris. We want to determine our own value chains, and we want our resources to be used for the betterment of our young people, because it's the youngest continent. Yeah. And that is an opportunity, but it is also a potential bomb, a potential disaster, if we do not quickly change paradigm and make sure our resources are put to the benefit of the African young people. All of us will be consumed in no time. So I think that it's very good that this aid is being withdrawn. They should withdraw all of it. It shouldn't just be 90-day executive orders. So as foreign minister, I'm not going to bother trying to negotiate with any country that why are you withdrawing aid? Why are you diverting international assistance? It's also good. When you are done with the withdrawals, when you come back to the table, we have new prizes for our gold resources. We have new terms. We have new terms for our agreements. And it's not the same old Africa. You can't just come and take everything and then leave us with 10% or 5%. There's a new mindset and a new philosophy. That's how we see it.
Honorable, this conversation is very interesting, and I don't want to end, but then because of time, I'll just ask one last question. Today is African Union Day. If we're in primary schools, we would have probably said our day. And so I want you to just give one advice to the students here or to the policymakers watching us today or even from home.
I'll go back to the Osagefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's blueprint. Africa must unite. Let's remember that the current configuration of Africa is an artificial one. Otto von Bismarck and his colleagues is a very artificial. Before these boundaries, we were very civilized, developed societies. The Ghana Empire, the Mali Empire, the Songhai Empire. I mean, civilization started in Africa. That's what we must always remember. And we need to unite. If we unite, so you have cobalt, I have lithium. You have oil, I have bauxite. And we come together. They take advantage of our disunity. So if Ghana is firm in negotiations, okay, I can find those same natural resources in the next country, so I'm going there. So I think we must go back to Kwame Nkrumah's blueprint. Let's unite. Let's pull down the artificial borders. Go back to the Casablanca blueprint, a united Africa, one central bank, one currency, a common standby force. That was the original conceptualization of the Africa Union, not the loose, if you like, social club that we have today. That really will take us nowhere. And then the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Why are we still not trading amongst ourselves? Intra-Africa trade is less than 20%. How can you develop? Less than 20%. To travel as foreign minister, I've been grappling with the reality. To travel even amongst our countries, you have to go to Europe before you connect to the continent. I mean, can there be real trade, real industrialization without transportation, without the infrastructure that we need to facilitate trade and to spur growth? So we know what to do. The blueprint is there. Our founding fathers, since they met here in 1900, came up with a master plan. And I think that we need to return to it in a very, sincere and diligent manner and forget about the, little benefits we get from the so-called sovereignties. Really, I don't know. It's just about egos. We don't get any benefit really from that. And then have real political unity and the right leadership. And Africa is the continent for the future. And they need us. They need us. We don't need them. That's how I see it.
Thank you so much for joining us, Honorable. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you.